Memphis, Tennessee, 1034 Audubon Drive, August 15, 1955. Sunday afternoon, 3:20 p.m. The modest brick ranch house sits quietly in one of Memphis's middle-class neighborhoods, its small front yard maintained with the careful attention of people who understand that appearance matters when you're trying to move up in the world. This is not the mansion that Elvis Presley will one day call Graceland. This is the house that Vernon and Gladys Presley bought with their son's first real earnings, a symbol of how far the family has come since their days in Tupelo housing projects. Inside the living room, 20-year-old Elvis Presley sits on the edge of the couch, his long legs folded awkwardly in the small space, his black hair perfectly styled despite the August heat. He is wearing his best shirt, white with thin blue stripes, and black pants that Gladys pressed that morning specifically for this meeting. At 20, Elvis is still young enough to let his mother choose his clothes for important occasions, still innocent enough to trust that adults have his best interests at heart. Across from Elvis, in Vernon's favorite armchair, sits the man who will control the rest of Elvis's life, though neither of them knows it yet. Colonel Tom Parker is 46 years old, a round man with thinning hair and thick glasses who looks more like a small-town banker than the carnival promoter he actually is. He wears a white suit that somehow remains crisp despite the Memphis humidity, and his voice carries a slight accent that he claims is from West Virginia, but that actually originates from a small village in Holland called Breda. Colonel Tom Parker is not actually a colonel, has never served in any military, and Tom Parker is not his real name. He was born Andreas van Kuijk in Breda, Holland, in 1909, the son of a stable hand who dreamed of escaping poverty through cunning rather than labor. At 18, young Andreas jumped ship in New Orleans, becoming an illegal immigrant with no documentation, no legal right to work in America, and no way to ever return to Europe without risking deportation. For 27 years he has reinvented himself completely. Andreas van Kuijk became Tom Parker, then Colonel Tom Parker, accumulating fake credentials like a con artist collecting disguises. He learned English by listening to radio, perfected his accent by mimicking movies, and created a fictional biography that transforms a desperate Dutch immigrant into a successful American entrepreneur. But his success has come at a price. Parker owes money to dangerous people, casino owners, loan sharks, business partners who invested in schemes that evaporated. Parker needs Elvis not just to make himself rich, but to keep himself alive. The 50% he's demanding isn't just greed, it's survival. Son, Parker says, leaning forward in the armchair with the practiced intimacy of a man who has made a career out of convincing people to trust him. I've been in this business for 25 years. I've worked with circuses, carnivals, country music stars, Hollywood performers. I've seen them all, and I've made them all money, but I have never seen anyone with your potential. Elvis shifts uncomfortably on the couch. At 20, he is still unaccustomed to praise from adults, still surprised that anyone takes his music seriously. For the past year, he has been performing at small venues around Memphis and the South, building a following among teenagers who scream his name and dance to rhythms their parents don't understand. But Elvis doesn't think of himself as destined for greatness. He thinks of himself as a truck driver who happens to sing. I appreciate that, Colonel, Elvis says, his voice carrying the soft Memphis accent that will become his trademark. But I already have a manager. Bob Neal's been real good to me. Parker waves his hand dismissively, as if Bob Neal is a minor inconvenience rather than the man who discovered Elvis's commercial potential. Bob Neal is a fine fellow, son, but he's small time. Radio promotion, local bookings, maybe a record deal with a regional label, that's not what you need. Parker pulls a manila folder from his briefcase, opens it on the coffee table between them. Inside are photographs of famous performers, newspaper clippings, contracts with impressive letterheads. The folder is thick, official-looking, designed to impress a young man who has never seen the machinery of the entertainment industry up close. What you need, Parker continues, is someone who understands the big picture. Television, movies, national touring, merchandise, international distribution. You need someone who can turn Elvis Presley from a regional curiosity into a global phenomenon. Gladys Presley enters the living room, carrying a pitcher of sweet tea and glasses on a tray, her face showing the strain of a woman trying to look sophisticated for an important guest. At 43, Gladys has spent most of her life in poverty, has worked in factories and taken in laundry to help feed her family. Her hands are still rough from years of manual labor, her back aches from bending over sewing machines and wash tubs. Even now, with Elvis earning money from local performances, the family lives paycheck to paycheck, never more than a few weeks away from financial disaster. The house on Audubon Drive represents the pinnacle of the family's success. A modest 3-bedroom ranch that cost $10,000, purchased with the down payment from Elvis's early Sun Records royalties. But the mortgage payments are $87 per month, more money than Vernon has ever earned consistently in his life. The pressure to maintain their new middle-class lifestyle weighs on all of them, especially Gladys, who lies awake at night, calculating grocery budgets and utility bills. The idea that her son might become wealthy enough to support them all is both thrilling and terrifying. Thrilling because it would mean an end to the financial anxiety that has dominated her entire adult life. Terrifying because she has learned not to trust good fortune, learned that every blessing in their lives has come with a hidden cost. "You gentlemen need anything else?" she asks, setting the tray on the coffee table. "This is perfect, Mrs. Presley," Parker says with the charm of a man who knows that winning the mother is often the key to winning the son. "You've raised a remarkable young man here. You should be very proud." Gladys beams, and Elvis sees the effect Parker's words have on his mother. This man understands how to make people feel important, how to make them believe in possibilities they never dared imagine. Vernon Presley emerges from the kitchen, wearing his good pants and a shirt that's slightly too formal for a Sunday afternoon. At 39, Vernon has spent his entire adult life struggling to provide for his family, taking whatever work he could find, always one paycheck away from disaster. The possibility that his son might become successful enough to change the family's fortunes is almost too wonderful to believe. "Colonel," Vernon says, settling into a dining room chair he's brought into the living room, "Elvis tells us you've got big plans for his career." Parker nods gravely, as if he's about to reveal state secrets. "Mr. Presley, your son has something that cannot be taught, cannot be manufactured, cannot be imitated. He has that indefinable quality that separates true stars from mere performers. But talent alone isn't enough. You need strategy, connections, industry knowledge." Parker opens his briefcase again, pulls out a thick document bound in blue covers. "This is a management contract that gives me the authority to guide Elvis's career in every aspect. Recording, touring, television, movies, merchandising, publishing, total career management." Elvis reaches for the contract, but Parker holds it slightly back. "Before you read the details, son, I want you to understand what I'm offering you. I'm offering to make you the most famous entertainer in America, not just a country singer, not just a regional performer, but a household name from coast to coast." The living room falls silent except for the tick of the mantel clock and the distant sound of children playing in the street. Elvis looks at his parents, sees the hope and fear mixing in their faces, understands that this decision will change everything for his family. "What exactly would you do for me that Bob Neal can't do?" Elvis asks. Parker's smile widens, and for a moment his eyes show the calculating intelligence of a man who has been waiting for this question. "Son, Bob Neal can get you bookings in Memphis and Nashville, maybe Atlanta if you're lucky. I can get you on the Ed Sullivan Show. Bob Neal can negotiate a contract with Sun Records. I can get you a deal with RCA Victor. Bob Neal can book you into county fairs. I can put you in movies." Each promise hits Elvis like a physical blow. The Ed Sullivan Show is the pinnacle of American entertainment, watched by 60 million people every Sunday night. RCA Victor is the most prestigious record label in the world. Movies are fantasies that Elvis has never dared to consider. "That sounds incredible," Elvis says carefully. "But what would it cost?" Parker leans back in his chair, his expression becoming serious, businesslike. "Elvis, I don't work for a salary. I don't charge hourly fees. I work for a percentage of your earnings, which means I only make money when you make money. My success is tied directly to your success. What percentage? Vernon asks, his voice carrying the caution of a man who has learned not to trust anything that sounds too good to be true. Parker pauses for dramatic effect, lets the question hang in the air for 5 seconds before answering. 50%. The living room goes dead silent. Vernon's face shows shock. Gladys's hand flies to her throat. Elvis stares at Parker as if he's announced his intention to ask for half of Elvis's soul. 50%? Vernon repeats, his voice barely above a whisper. Parker nods calmly, as if this is the most reasonable arrangement in the world. 50% of everything. Records, concerts, movies, television appearances, merchandise, everything. That's... Vernon starts, then stops, unable to finish the sentence. That's highway robbery, Gladys says, her maternal protectiveness overcoming her desire to be polite to an important guest. Parker chuckles, not offended by the accusation, but rather pleased that he has their full attention. Mrs. Presley, I understand your concern. 50% sounds like a lot. But let me ask you this. Would you rather have 50% of $1 million or 100% of $1,000? The mathematics are simple, but the implications are staggering. Parker is suggesting that Elvis could earn enough money to make 50% more valuable than complete control of his current income. Besides, Parker continues, most managers take 20% and do very little for it. I'm taking 50% and doing everything. I'll be your manager, your promoter, your business advisor, your career strategist. I'll negotiate every contract, plan every tour, handle every detail of Elvis's professional life. You'll never have to worry about the business side of entertainment again. Elvis looks at the contract. Parker is holding, thick with legal language that he doesn't understand, full of terms and conditions that will bind him for years. At 20, he has never signed anything more complicated than a rental agreement. The idea of committing to a business relationship that will control his entire career is both exciting and terrifying. Can we think about it? Elvis asks. Parker sets the contract on the coffee table, but he doesn't push it toward Elvis. Son, I understand that this is a big decision, but I need you to understand something. Opportunity doesn't wait. Right now you're hot in Memphis, warm in the South, but musical trends change fast. What's popular today is forgotten tomorrow. The window for building a national career is small, and it's open right now. Parker stands up, walks to the front window, looks out at the quiet Sunday afternoon street. Elvis, there are 100 singers in Nashville who had their moment and missed it. They're playing honky-tonks and county fairs, wondering what might have been if they'd had the courage to take the big step when it was offered to them. He turns back to face Elvis, and his expression is sincere, almost fatherly. I'm not asking you to trust me because I'm a nice man or because you like my personality. I'm asking you to trust me because I know how to build careers, and I know that yours is worth building. Elvis stands up, paces to the opposite side of the small living room, runs his hand through his hair. Colonel, even if everything you're saying is true, 50% seems like a lot to give up. Elvis, Parker says quietly, you're not giving up 50%. You're investing 50% to get the other 50%. Without proper management, without industry connections, without strategic career planning, you might earn 100% of nothing. With my guidance, you'll earn 50% of everything. Gladys and Vernon exchange glances, the kind of wordless communication that passes between parents who have struggled together and dreamed together. They see their son wrestling with a decision that could change not just his life but theirs as well. What do you think, Mama? Elvis asks, seeking guidance from the woman whose opinion matters more to him than anyone else's. Gladys looks at her son, this boy who has grown into a young man with a voice that makes people stop whatever they're doing and listen. Baby, I can't make this decision for you, but I will say this. We've been poor all our lives, and being poor is hard. If this man can help you never be poor again, maybe 50% is worth it. Vernon nods slowly. Son, I've worked for other people my whole life, taken what they were willing to give me, never had any say in my own destiny. Maybe this is your chance to be your own boss, even if you have to share the profits." Elvis looks at Colonel Parker, this confident man who speaks with such certainty about fame and fortune and success. At 20, Elvis doesn't know that Parker is an illegal immigrant operating under a false identity. He doesn't know that Parker has debts to dangerous people that he needs Elvis's earnings to pay. He doesn't know that Parker will spend the next 20 years making decisions based not on what's best for Elvis's career, but on what's best for Parker's immediate financial needs. All Elvis knows is that he has a gift, and this man claims he can help him share that gift with the world. "If I sign this," Elvis says slowly, "you promise you'll get me on television? Real television, not just local shows?" "I guarantee it," Parker says. "And movies? You really think I could be in movies?" "Elvis, with your looks and your voice and my connections, you'll be a movie star within 3 years. And you'll handle all the business stuff, the contracts and the money and the tours, everything. You'll never have to worry about anything except performing." Elvis picks up the contract, flips through pages of legal language that might as well be written in a foreign language. He doesn't understand the clauses about merchandising rights or international distribution or movie soundtrack percentages. He doesn't realize that he's signing away control not just of his earnings but of every creative decision he'll make for the rest of his career. "Do you have a pen?" Elvis asks. Parker produces a gold fountain pen from his jacket pocket, hands it to Elvis with the ceremony of a king passing a scepter to his heir. Elvis signs his name on the signature line, his handwriting careful and deliberate, unaware that he has just committed himself to a relationship that will make him the most famous performer in history and one of the most controlled artists who ever lived. Parker takes the contract, witnesses Elvis's signature with his own, then shakes hands with each member of the Presley family. "Congratulations," he says to Elvis. "You just took the first step toward becoming the biggest star in the world." As Parker leaves the house on Audubon Drive, Elvis stands in the doorway watching him go, feeling excited and nervous and proud. He has just signed with a real manager, a professional who promises to guide him to heights he never imagined possible. What Elvis doesn't understand is that he has also just signed away his freedom to choose his own path, to make his own mistakes, to succeed or fail on his own terms. For the next 22 years, until the day he dies, every major decision about his career will be made by Colonel Tom Parker, a man whose first priority will never be Elvis's artistic fulfillment, but always his own financial security. The consequences will be immediate and far-reaching. Parker will sell Elvis's RCA contract for $35,000, groundbreaking money that makes Elvis the highest-paid recording artist, but also the most controlled. He will negotiate movie contracts that guarantee enormous paychecks, but require formulaic musicals that waste Elvis's dramatic talent. He will book Vegas residencies that gross millions, but trap Elvis in a golden cage of endless repetition. Most tragically, Parker's illegal status will prevent Elvis from touring internationally. While the Beatles conquer the world and Dylan speaks to generations, Elvis, the most famous entertainer alive, will never perform outside North America because his manager cannot risk background checks required for international touring. Elvis will earn over $100 million during his career, but after Parker's 50% taxes and expenses, he will die with an estate worth less than $10 million. Parker, meanwhile, will accumulate a fortune estimated at over $40 million, all built on the talent of a young man who trusted him to have his best interests at heart. The signature that Elvis Presley wrote that Sunday afternoon in Memphis made him the king of rock and roll. It also made him a prisoner of his own success, bound by a contract that gave him fame beyond measure and took away his right to control how that fame was used. Sometimes the deals that make us rich make us poor in ways we never expected. Sometimes the people who promise to set us free are the ones who build the cages we'll spend our lives trying to escape. Elvis Presley became the biggest star in the world, but he never learned that being the biggest star and being free are two very different things.